Hello and welcome. You're watching Money 9. I'm Sakshi Batra, and on this show, we talk all about markets and how do you really approach the current market scenario when the markets and or benchmark indices are trading near all-time high levels. I have with me a very special guest joining in. With me, I have Mr. Ashish Somaya. He's the CEO of White Oak Capital, and he joins in on this edition of Market Masterclass.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Mr. Samayan. Thank you so much for taking out time for us. It's our pleasure to have you. And let me just kickstart by asking you about your sense of the markets currently. Of course, it's been a spectacular run in the last 1.5 years. We have been in this bull run from the prism of the benchmarks like Nifty. Markets are sitting at an all-time high level. But in just the last couple of days or weeks, we have seen that the underlying value of the market has been exposed, especially in the small and mid-cap stocks, which have corrected a bit. I wanted to ask you, which most of the investors are wondering at this point, that have the markets really peaked out for the year?
No, I wouldn't call it. I wouldn't call a peak as yet. Just a couple of things you should keep in mind that even before we saw this correction, and I would call it a welcome correction because even before we saw this correction, forget from last year, from April till this peak, the small cap index was up another 35 to 40%. Now that is quite staggering, and from the bottom, more than 3x. So I think that it's in the nature of markets to take a pause or to take a correction or to consolidate, especially after a very very sharp kind of up move. And as far as all-time highs are concerned, I don't think that all-time high is any reason to stay out of the market because every all-time high is preceded by a series of all-time highs, and you can rest assured that this one will be succeeded by further more number of all-time highs.
Okay, that's good news for most of the investors who are looking to enter at this point as well. But typically in a bull market, we've most of the time seen that you have a leadership sector. Why do
Sure.
you think that this is missing this time? Because we have been seeing a lot of sector rotation taking place, at least in the last few months. So, what would you advise is the most prudent strategy for investors to trade in a market which is constantly shifting between sectors?
Yeah, I think that is happening because if you see after COVID last year, the whole economy in that sense was kind of reset. So it's like, there is a race going on, and somewhere in the middle of the race, everybody's told, okay, no, forget all this. Everybody go back to the starting point, start all over again. So obviously, everybody's, from a practically from a zero reset, we are seeing the economy kind of coming back to life. And as a result of that, it's very natural that you will see different trends in different scenarios, number one. Number two, there are many industries which have come up, or sectors which have come up, which are seeing structural changes, like, production linked incentive or digital adaptation, capital market adaptation. I mean, this is not something which we have witnessed pre-COVID. It's only come up post-COVID that, there are certain trends in the landscape which have changed quite significantly. The third is, if you see, say, typically banking is a very important or a big sector, but that also has seen mixed trends over the
Yeah.
last 12 to 15 months, depending on the kind of news flow or the lockdowns and stuff that we are seeing. So it's but natural that there is rotation. But I think eventually from this, clearly, you will see some winners which will emerge out of it on a more lasting basis. That's how I would put it.
Right. But if there were any kind of risks that you would want to warn the investors about, what could emerge as the big risks at this level for the markets? And would you say that at this point in time, perhaps investors should look to rejuggle the portfolio allocation, reallocate, or ease off some exposure from the small and mid caps, deploy to large caps, or would you actually go multi cap at this point?
See, we are always a advocate or a votary for multi-cap kind of portfolios purely because we profess to be bottom-up investors, which
Hmm.
automatically means that we would not want to take these top-down calls about, okay, now large cap looks better or small cap looks
Okay.
better. So that's the easier one that we are always because you will have winners or you'll have players who are increasing market share or gaining traction across sectors. And there are many sectors where the leader is also a small cap or a mid cap company because maybe the sector itself is underpenetrated. So
Hmm.
there is a lot one can say where it's very clear that you should look for multi-cap kind of portfolios. That's the first thing. Second thing on your question, about rejuggling portfolios or how to play it from here on, or what are the lessons or learnings. I think I have always been saying, even on our previous discussions, that anybody who started investing in 2020 would have seen one hell of a dream run, in the last
Yes.
1 year. And I have always said not to extrapolate that into the future, because the way things played out from the bottom of 2020 till, say, June, July of 2021 is almost a dream run. It was unsustainable. So if you think that, investing in the stock market is easy, or this is something which can be done forever, then this is like a warning signal, because you just don't extrapolate something. At the same time, anybody who started in 2017 or 18, they went through some really, really bad times. So for them also, the message is the same, that don't read too much into it, don't learn too much from it, because it's not as bad as it might appear to the guys who started in 2018, and it's not as rosy as it might appear to the guys who started in 2020. The reality is always in between. And I think it's important that, whether it's an RIA or a portfolio manager or a mutual fund, I think professional help is always important.
Absolutely. Well, this is absolutely key because we've seen the kind of influx of retail investors in the last 1.5 years. And for them, they actually believe that, perhaps they have a Midas touch, whatever they've touched has turned into gold in the last 1 year. But yes, that is not going to be sustainable. An important lesson that everybody should keep in mind. You did talk about a lot of themes that have attracted traction, and, why the markets have supported this kind of new reforms of PLI that have come in. I also wanted to point out one sector that has been a clear outperformer in this past year. It's the IT sector. Some of the stocks
Sure.
have actually risen up to 400%. So, of course, even now, investors want to take a bite of it, but is there still steam left on these large cap or mid cap companies which have already shown spectacular returns? Are we going to see further re-rating? Or is it a time that now you book profits from this dream run of IT?
See, I think the beauty about IT as a sector, or the great thing that has happened in the last 3 to 4 years, is that
Mhm.
it's enveloped every part or every area of business. Like many years back, IT used to basically be the top 3 4 companies, which were into consulting or implementation for global clients. But now, if you see, IT is, there are mid cap IT companies which are into SaaS or into product as a service kind of offerings. You have mid cap IT companies which are doing completely different work. Like they're engaged with, say, digital,
Hmm.
or they are engaged with other kinds of offerings. So one is the diversity that has come up in IT as a sector. Second is that if you see, for instance, this whole new era of fintech plays, or consumer tech plays, or med tech kind of plays which are coming up. So the first point to keep in mind is IT is no longer a uh, one horse sector. IT itself has become much deeper in terms of the number of subsectors that it brings forth. Correct. Similarly, if you see even if you see financial markets or capital market companies and IT, the overlap, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is huge digital adaption in capital markets. So I think that the space has become much wider, whether it is capital market and financial services or it is IT. The space
Hmm.
has become much wider. There will always be great opportunities. Last thing I'll leave our listeners with one thought is that
Hmm.
just compare at some point in time. Just compare that in the US, what is the sectoral breakup of the market cap for S&P 500, and
Yeah.
then compare that what is the sectoral breakup in the market cap for the Nifty 500. You
Hmm.
will find that in India, financial services is largest by a mile, whereas in the US, it's IT enabled services, fintech, consumer tech, medtech. These are the larger ones. And I don't think any of these sectors are playing a lesser role. Of course, we don't have the Facebooks and Googles listed out here,
Yeah.
but still, there are many businesses which are not even represented in the market. So I think this sector has a long way to go, really, if you ask me, in the next few years.
Yes, and since you did talk about these tech majors, I wanted to ask you, in the last 17 odd months, retail investors have poured in huge amount of money in the primary markets as well.
Sure.
We've seen these new age digital tech companies emerging. Zomato has had a stunning debut. Now we're looking at Policy Bazaar or Paytm coming up and going to public too very soon. How have you approached these IPOs that have garnered huge interest from investors so far? And are you
Mhm.
also particularly looking forward to any one of them, new entrants coming forward? And what would you advise as a strategy to investors here?
See, I think this is, in some sense related to your previous question that IT has become all pervasive. It will be
Right.
very difficult to earmark or isolate it as a sector. Now,
Mm.
everything has IT and digitization into it.
Mm.
On your specific question, we approach all these IPOs quite constructively. I'm actually
Okay.
not in the camp which believes that just because there are IPOs, it's a bubble. In fact, I
Mm.
would welcome some of these. On one hand, we complain a lot about valuations and liquidity and flows in the market. Then the best way to temper flows and liquidity or absorb flows and manage valuations in the market is the best ways to get new listings. And these
Mm.
are big companies, they are household names, they are brands which all of us use. So we would
Mm.
approach them constructively and with an open mind, right? In the US, there is a very, very huge private equity culture whereby companies get listed when they are already mega cap. And they have some 20, 30-year track record, 20, 25-year track record before they get listed many a times. They've had their entire journey incubated by some private equity. In
Mm.
India, the private equity cult is 15 years old, and
Yeah.
thankfully, companies are still coming for listing at an appropriate stage. I mean, for example, if Zomato didn't get listed at 60, 70,000 crores, then
Yeah.
what would we want? We want them to get listed at 2 lakh crores, is it? I mean, I'm happy that these guys need to come to the market or that they are coming to the market and giving opportunity for all of us to participate. It's obvious that every IPO has to be evaluated individually on merit, but
Mm.
clearly some of these new listings are more than welcome.
Okay, so that's an interesting take because a lot of experts have been talking a lot about how steep valuations are a big concern. Yeah, there may be a bubble because we still don't have profits. There is no visibility of the profits on the books. But yes, should we
So
have
that's the
waited for?
challenge. That's the challenge, right? I mean, you can't pass up an opportunity just because evaluating it is going to be really, really difficult.
Yes, absolutely. Well, very interesting take there, and gives a lot of hopes to all those investors who've been very bullish about this new age story that is emerging, and maybe looking at a 5, 10 year kind of a growth story emerging out of Zomato. One or two particular sectors that you may want to talk about that you're very bullish on from here on has a very good risk reward at this point in time. Long term investors can actually bet on that even today, and the sector that you may say a complete avoid to.
See, I wouldn't go around making sectoral calls. So I would definitely not tell anybody to stay completely out of any sector because every sector has its strong points. Every sector, even if it is cyclical, every sector goes through its
Hmm.
periods of outperformance and underperformance. So clearly, no sectoral views. But
Hmm.
specifically on your question, that what maybe I can highlight something which I think through this COVID period, because a lot of people think that the market always goes through boom bust cycles. So
Right.
now the market has gone up, eventually it will fall. Or
Hmm.
now some stocks or sectors have gone up, eventually they'll correct. Well,
Yeah.
that may be true, from a mean reversion perspective, it may be true. But everything after COVID or everything about this market rally is not cyclical. I think some
Right.
things have changed structurally,
Hmm.
which means that they are lasting changes, or in a cliched manner, people say that this is a new normal. So staying away from cliches, three, four things which I think are not going to go back to pre-COVID and hence,
Hmm.
warrant a longer term evaluation. So first, like I mentioned in my conversation, is capital market adaptation. I don't think that youngsters and people who are disenchanted with the returns from say fixed income or alternative asset classes,
Yeah.
and who have adapted to capital markets, may it be through mutual funds or registered advisors or through portfolio managers, they're not going to go back to the old ways. So I think that's a lasting change. The number of demat accounts or the number of participants that we've been able to invite into the market,
Hmm.
that won't change. 2
Hmm.
3 years back, even the mutual fund industry did this mutual fund sahi, and they were able to elicit a lot of interest from
Hmm.
investors. All of these
Hmm.
things are irreversible. I don't think they are changing. Second thing is, you mentioned about Zomato or Policy Bazaar or now Nika or any of these companies that are getting listed. They are the kind of torchbearers for digital adoption, and
Yes.
I don't think we are going to reverse our habits at all, right?
Hmm.
COVID actually kind of expedited digital adoption, right?
Hmm.
And I don't think we are going to go back to our pre-COVID habits because habits take time to form, and then there is an element of convenience, variety, and many of these things. So
Okay, so
digital adoption is not reversing.
sorry to cut you here, but I wanted to ask you on Zomato only because a lot of questions are being made that once we are hoping that we come out of COVID eventually, and once
Yeah.
that happens, we're going to be perhaps going to be spending a lot more on dining out rather than ordering
Mm.
in, because we've missed all
Sure.
of the last 1.5 years sitting at home and ordering. So for that, do you think then again Zomato will have to relook at their dining out model more, focus more there, and the kind of Hyperpure and the other revenue generating models that it is building on? Will that be a more prominent way to look at Zomato then and see how it emerges?
Yeah, so I think it will be a marginal, barely any impact because look at the long trend or look at the larger trend. The larger trend is that people who are not adapting to digitally ordering in, they have been
Hmm.
forced to adapt. Correct.
Hmm.
It's true that some of us will want to venture out, and that is quite natural. But
Hmm.
look at places like Delhi, Mumbai, Gurgaon, for example, which are traffic is a challenge, the
Hmm.
crowd is a challenge, the
Hmm.
cost of real estate, especially the cost of retail real estate, you know, the population density. I mean, there are multiple reasons why once you start ordering in, nuclearization of families, more
Yeah,
induction of women into the workforce. I mean, I don't think that any of these trends are going to be reversed. On the
okay.
margin, yes, some people may say that we'll dine out instead of ordering in, but that's par for course. I mean, that's nothing can be done about that. I think it's a marginal impact at best, if you ask me. But on the
Okay.
larger theme, when we were talking, I was just trying to say that these two things, capital market adaptation and digital adaptation, is not going to reverse. Right? India is gaining traction as a manufacturing base. There are early signs. I mean, one
Yeah.
wouldn't declare a victory out here, but
Yeah.
clearly something has changed, and we are making records as far as private equity infusion or FDI or even foreign portfolio inflows are concerned, right?
Hmm.
So I don't think, or let's say we are getting recognition as a pharmaceutical base for many parts of the medical industry. So I don't
Hmm.
think any of this is going to get reversed post COVID.
Okay, and lastly, I wanted to ask you, for our first-time investors, viewers entering the markets right now, your piece of advice on the best way to construct a portfolio. What is the role of fixed investments here, the debt products here, and how
Sure.
much should you allocate at this point in time to equities? If you could just help them get an idea.
See, for a novice investor, somebody who has never invested in equity,
Hmm.
and just looking to start out, I
Hmm.
always tell that if you don't know what to buy, you buy the market. So if how do you buy the whole market? You can just buy a Nifty 500 index fund, for example, right? It covers 95% of the market cap, 95% of listed market cap, and gives you an exposure to the asset class per se. And once you get acquainted or familiarized, then you can decide, okay, while I want to get more focused into certain types of funds or certain asset management companies, or you can develop your choices as you
Hmm.
go along. But it's more important to get started, and the best way to start is to buy the market. As far as fixed income is concerned, I think nowadays the choices are wide open, because it's not like that debt mutual funds are giving a lot more than fixed deposits, etc. On the other hand, there are new options which are coming up. So not exactly fixed income, but there are hybrids, like say a real estate investment trust is a good
Yes.
bet for anybody looking at 3 to 5 year kind of time horizons, but not looking at a real stock market volatility in that sense.
Hmm.
I do believe that they will outperform fixed income funds, and I think that could be a good opportunity for people. But yes, they need to tide over the volatility. So at least a couple of years of time horizon would be important.
Okay, understood that. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Mr. Somaya, for sharing all these wonderful insights with all our viewers on markets and how to approach them at this point in time. It was wonderful speaking with you, and I hope to have you back on Market Masterclass and another edition too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and with that, we wrap up this edition of Market Masterclass, and we'll keep getting you such interesting conversations with all the experts of the markets so that you can get to know how are they looking at the markets, what's the best strategy for you, and how can you maximize your profits when you're going into investments into equities. Thank you so much for tuning in.